All right. Well, today I'm sitting down with Adam Perrins. I got a chance to come over and look at some of his family history and family line, which is kind of interesting. And he's going to be diving into family history. But in the meantime, we're going to get to know about real life and not the old time life. So, Adam, if you want to say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my podcast.
That's right. And so we're going to start just kind of getting to know you. So tell me a little bit, Adam, about where you were born and grew up.
So I was born actually in Detroit, Michigan. My dad took a job with Ford. It was in the 70s, so my dad lasted a year there because of the race riots and stuff. He's like, I'm not interested in living here. So he went back to Spokane, where he was from. And so I spent my whole life in Spokane. That's where I grew up. I'm the fifth of 11.
How many boys and girls?
7 boys, 4 girls. So we got a girl to start, a girl to end, and 2 girls in the middle. So they had no say or vote. It was a boys' family. So, yeah.
What did you guys like to do in Spokane?
So we were big into sports, against the will of my father. So
against his will?
Yeah. Well, so my dad was a very musical person, loved music. He played a lot of sports when he was in high school too. So he was a star athlete, whatever. But I think he realized that there's no future in sports, so he pushed education and music. And in fact, Sister Romney, so her mom, Carol Burnett, and my dad were best buds in Spokane. They put on every stake musical, every stake presentation music. They were in on it. But us boys, I remember I was like 10 years old when my dad sat all those boys at the piano bench because his dream was to have a family band. And he, click a key, see if we could hold a note, and none of us could. I think we just crushed his whole dream, But we all just love sports, so every team sport we played, we were in it. That's all we did. Yeah.
I'll come back to that in just a second. So tell me about your folks. What do you remember about your folks? How they met? What they did? Things like that.
So yeah, I know our family was pretty tight. I mean, there was 11. We were a big 11. We were a big force, so everybody knew us. No one invited us over because we just destroyed stuff, ate everything, destroyed everything. Because we were all small boys who, wanted to put on weight, and so we just ate like crazy. But my mom was a convert, and she joined the church in high school, after high school, because LDS friends around her. My dad was born in the church, but he lived up kind of in north Spokane, where the church was really new. And so there was periods of time that they were the only church, so they went to Methodist church because that was the only church they had. But he served a mission in the southeastern states, Spanish-speaking. So he lived in Compton back when Compton was a new development. But we were born and raised in the church and really strong. My parents were kind of one of the strong founding members of North Spokane Stake when it developed. And our family and a couple other large families, like 9 kids or so, we were kind of like the ringleaders of that area. We were the only members of the church, but...
So you guys have 11, and there's another family with 9?
There's 2 other families that had like 9, so we were the only LDS presence up there, but it was a good mix.
Big presence.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what sports did you like to play growing up?
I really loved baseball, but it wasn't my natural sport. Soccer was my natural sport, but my family, that wasn't macho enough, so I didn't do it too much. Football was a sport, but we were all too small to progress any further. Wrestled, basketball, discovered basketball later in high school.
Tell me about high school. What was high school like for you?
Well, so my sophomore year, we moved from Meade, Washington, out to a lake out in the boonies, which meant we were out of our district, and the school wouldn't take us, give an exception. So my dad finagled to get me and my brother and sister into a private school. Somehow, I know, we must have got a scholarship or something, because there's no way we could afford that. And so I spent my senior year at a small private school, like 13 kids in a grade, and played all sports, of course. So good memories. I had the best childhood you can imagine.
What made it so good or magical? It seems like you really enjoyed it.
Well, I was a middle child. There was the whole neighborhood would come to our house for kickball, baseball, can't say it's a career, can we?
You just did.
Trampolines, building stuff, destroying stuff, getting in having a lot of fun. We weren't a malicious group. We just love competing and having fun. So there's always something going on.
You got a favorite high school memory, like something that stood out to you?
Nothing I can think of on the spot. We did BB gun wars and stuff like that. The one pump rule. Shooting each other in the woods all the time.
Did you stick to only one pump?
I think I did, but sometimes when tempers flared, I remember my oldest brother took a BB off that bone here in your wrist, and it ricocheted under the skin all up here. So we had to cut it out and not tell anybody, of course, and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm kind of the engineer, fix-it guy in the family, so I'd build giant ramps out of the garage and launch off or ski off the barn and breaking people's arms. Not mine. I always had my little brothers were my test dummies, so breaking arms and legs and stuff like that. So
Suckers.
Well, they were good. They were pretty rubbery, except for once in a while. So.
That's cool. So what did you do after high school?
So after high school, I was young for my age, so I had to wait a year. So I graduated high school. We lived on the lake because we moved out there, and I had a friend that returned from a mission. So he had a job, and he would come out every afternoon with gas money. I water skied every day from my senior year graduation until about mid-August, when my mom kicked me out of the house because she said I needed a job. Well, the funny thing is I had a job. I worked for this guy who never called me, so that was my excuse. I got a job, Mom, but he just doesn't need me. But my brother came home from mission. He was getting engaged. He had to go to Seattle to work, and my mom sent me in the car with him. So that ended my water skiing. So then I went to community college, floundered for a bit because I had to wait a year until I turned 19. Then went on my mission, went to Canada, Montreal mission.
English speaking?
French speaking.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't really pick it up French there, so didn't really speak French there.
It's kind of a dead language.
Yeah, it is. The Quebecois is really difficult, so...
There's a couple of people that won't like me saying that was a dead language, but anyway, I'll get in trouble later.
No. I can fake my way. I can read it. Obviously, I can't understand it because you're never around it anymore. But I can fake. I can get around. When we travel to Europe, I can get around.
How was that mission?
Great mission. We were really obedient mission. Super cold though. I mean, the winters are so cold. You walk outside, you feel your head shrink because it's just so cold. But we played a lot of hockey. We were allowed to play hockey just to get to know the locals. That was a good time.
Did you do a lot of teaching at that time?
We did a lot of finding. It was a finding mission, heavy, staunch Catholic. I mean, real Catholic. One generation removed from anybody over the age of 50 or 60 then came from a family of 14 or 15. That recent Catholic. Then everybody we taught, you find in French, but as soon as they were interested, they switched to English. Everybody's bilingual. So not a whole lot of teaching. I think like everybody has this experience. You end up teaching a lot of African immigrants stuff like that because the Ghanaians and Nigerians are the most receptive for teaching. So,
what did you learn on your mission?
I think we'll probably talk about my conversion story, but my conversion story is kind of I was converted the day I was born. I've always known the church to be true. I've always had not like grew up. I've just known. I mean, I've had a witness, a gift to the Spirit, a gift to know that Christ. I've always had that. And so my mission was just every day of my life is just piling more evidence, more understanding, more enlightenment. So the mission just helped accelerate that. It helped. There was that talk at conference about the face blindness and how some people, you see something, that's how you view it. I was blessed to see the foundation first when I was a kid, even as a youth. I mean, I was teaching the Book of Mormon to my fellow classmates when I was in sophomore, junior. So I was able to see my face. I saw those early on. I was very fortunate, somehow lucked out. And so I had the right blocks for my foundation first. So every day of my life was just adding to that pyramid to grow. So my mission was, it just added more experiences and more light and knowledge. So I loved it.
What was the hardest part about your mission?
I'm not the most social gifted, don't have the social skills, but so it's just learning to communicate with people and get my thoughts. especially just being raised in the gospel, everything's spiritual. How do you communicate spiritual stuff? You can't communicate it. So all you can do is just flounder. And that was the thing I struggled with most is how do you spit out just witness and testimony and years of study, and how do you spit that out into simple words that this poor person has no idea? Mm-hmm. That's what I struggle with the most is having the faith that people can accept whatever word came out. Because I think you have to have this whole puzzle fits together. If you could get the spider web together, you see it all work. You can't communicate that. So I struggle with that the most.
Isn't it crazy? The Lord sends 18, 19, 20-year-old boys and girls out, and somehow it all works out.
Yeah, or expects even 50-year-olds to do it too.
Right.
How do you communicate
feeling? I had a friend of mine who's not involved in church anymore, probably will never set foot in the church, and he still to this day says, hey, send any of your young men over to me and I'll tell them to go out on a mission. It changed how I interact with people, how I learned to live my life. It was the greatest 2 years, and he's still an advocate of missions, even though he'll never be at church.
Yeah. Well, that's what I loved about the mission the most. Being socially challenged, socially retarded.
Nah.
The mission allowed me to go, because when you go on a mission, people view you as a priest. They open their souls to you. And to be able to go there and feel that bond with people, to be part of their lives, I so enjoy it because I just don't naturally do that. I'm not gifted to do that. I can't. I'm emotionally challenged too. So, but to be able to go and experience and see people, I love people in that way. I'd love to go and when I go to a new city, I wish I could go dive in and go meet people. What are they doing today? How do they live each life? That's just an experience I just love about mission.
That's really cool. What did you do when you got home from your mission?
So after my mission, my parents they'd moved to a small farm town. So when I got back,
what was the name of it?
Tico, Washington.
Okay,
it's between Spokane and Pullman, by University of Washington State. I wasn't going to stay there, so I worked to harvest to make some money. Then I moved down to Arizona to work. So I had my brother-in-law. Brother was the CEO of Anasazi Foundation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I went to go work there.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I did that. So,
a lot of people probably don't know what Anasazi is. Why don't you share a little bit about that and what you did on that?
Okay, so Anasazi is a wilderness survival treatment program for troubled teens. And back when I was doing it, it still wasn't a state licensed program. So basically what it was is a treatment center for LDS kids. The program originated when BYU back in the 70s, 80s, whatever, had so many people failing. They wanted to find out why, so they created a program to help kids adjust. So that the founder of that migrated over to do it privately. And so basically a bunch of Mormon kids that were struggling. Well, basically you learn that parents are usually 90% of the problem with most troubles. So you take the kids out, they take them out in the desert, and the kids will stay there from 60 to 90 days straight, and the trail staff will go out for 2 or 3 week rotations, and you just guide them through the desert and let nature teach them and let Christ work on them. That's why it was great for me, because I was socially challenged. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to be an expert, because you just hike kids to the desert, and when they have a spiritual experience, you help them, and they come to you, why is this, why is that? And then you jump all over and teach them. So you didn't have to force anything. You let nature. And nature's great because kids can't manipulate. You can be the parents, you can manipulate situations, but you can't manipulate nature. So, and when you simplify your life too, it's amazing how close you can get to the Spirit. That's what I enjoyed about that job, is when life's about just food and survival, it humbles you quick, and you're in tune.
Yeah, even today, these kids, they still have to, for those that are listening, the kids that are out there on the trail, they have to make their own shelters. They get some food resources, but they got to figure out how to get more, and how to supplement, how to cook it, and take care of themselves, and prioritize in life. And it's not as gospel focused anymore, but it is definitely God focused.
Yeah, it is. My daughter Ella went out there last year to get a job tried out, and she reported back it wasn't. When I was out there, we weren't pushing the Book of Mormon, but anytime a kid. We had to wait for kids to ask before. Every time they asked, boom, we were Book of Mormon on them right quick. Because Christ is the only thing that can heal these wounds. Academia won't teach that, but that's just the truth. Yeah. So getting to Christ is the best way to do it.
Well, after spending some time on the trail with the Anasazi, what did you do?
Well, so when I started working there, that's where I met Suzanne. She was working there.
She was working there too?
She was working there too, yeah.
I think you told me that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so she's older than I am, and I was just on my mission. So she'd already graduated college.
So is it fair to say she went cougar?
No, I wouldn't. It happened. It just happened because I was young and poor, and all I was looking for was to go have fun and buy toys, And she was, graduating college. She was looking to get married and settle down. But we just hung out a lot. She came from a large family, so we had a lot of that in common. We worked quite a bit. I didn't realize at the time, but the staff always would try to pair us together because they wanted us to hook up.
Oh, wow.
Then we started just dating as kissing friends. Because we you got to meet somebody that has a life, and I got to go get a life. But we dated long enough, and all of a sudden, wait a second, we love each other, so yeah, we got married.
So how long did you date, and where did you guys get married?
So, see here, we dated for about 9 months before we married. I worked at Anasazi that full year. She had stopped at Anasazi and was working in the office, so that's how we dated through it. So I was married just over a year off the mission, so 18 months. No money, no prospect, no nothing. Here I was married, 18 months off my mission.
Great way to build a life.
It was great, yeah. I wouldn't do another way.
And for those that are listening, Suzanne, her sister, and their family's here in the ward. Yep. You want to maybe tell a little about that?
Okay. So Sarah is Suzanne's sister.
Sarah Rogers.
So she's quite a bit younger than Suzanne. But we used to live, when we first married, we lived neighbors with Sarah and Bethany because we lived in Mesa when we first, so I forgot about it. So we got married in Mesa Temple. That's in 94. Lived there for about 7 years. I started college. ASU. And lived next to Sarah. And Sarah and Ross were kind of high school sweethearts. Ross was always around. Ross and I played a lot of golf. Ross, like me, small build, but Ross is good at everything. So watch it. He'll beat you in golf, beat you ping pong, basketball. Yeah, he's fun. So we knew each other pretty well then. But they then split off. He went to med school. In fact, we were living next to them in Pennsylvania. They were in Pennsylvania, we were in Virginia. But they came here. They heard we were coming back. They recommended me come to the beach. I was like, we don't want to downsize to condo, but they taught us into it, so we love it.
It's a good trade-off.
It's good.
I didn't know you did some more schooling after ASU. Where'd you go and what'd you do?
Well, so I went to ASU. We had kids through that time. I graduated in 99. We had 3 kids then. I worked for a private firm out of college in Phoenix area.
Doing what?
Civil engineer. So I'm a civil engineer. Worked for a private firm. We took a lot of city jobs. At the time, interest rates were sky high, and we wanted to really buy a home and settle down and start living life. And we're not going to pay like 13% for a home. And I had a friend that was a year ahead of me that was in engineering program, but he would sign up with the Navy for some reason. The Navy was paying his way through school. I thought he was crazy for doing the Navy, but I was actually a crazy guy because I was working nights at UPS, paying my way through school, supporting a family, and falling asleep on tests. He was getting paid to go to school. So I remember that, so I called the Navy and said, hey, I didn't tell him this, but since I can't buy a house, we pay for my master's, and I'll join the Navy. And they said, well, we don't do that, but if you join the Navy, they took me on a VIP tour, showed me what their community does. Because I wasn't interested in going on ships and stuff like that. I had a family. But the Navy's different. The Navy, they want engineers and you're a staff officer, so you just do engineering, take care of bases, stuff like that. So I can do that. And we figured, hey, we both grew up lower middle class lives. Why not try something different? So let's join the Navy. They promised me Hawaii, and I said, okay, we'll do it. I had a 4-year commitment. And as an engineer, you have to get 4 years experience before you can take your exams and get licensed anyway. So I said, well, let's just do it. And if we don't like it, at least we got Hawaii out of the deal. But we ended up loving it. And it was a great quality of life. The Navy treated me really good. And my 4 years up, they offered me Italy. We're like, well, we can't get out now. And we had Isaac born in Hawaii. Then we did Italy, Florida, Mississippi, San Diego, Guam, DC, and now back to San Diego. Had 3 more kids. It's been a fun time.
So you've been around a lot of places. What are your responsibilities in the Navy? I know you're a civil engineer, but it doesn't tell me a whole lot about what you do on a daily basis, and I'm really curious about that.
Well, there's lots of different hats in our community. Civil engineer, our primary job is we are the construction, maintenance, support for all the bases. We do a lot of construction contracting, private contractors, a lot of civilian planners. We award contracts to build new barracks or new pools or new gyms or runways or shore infrastructure for utilities for the ships. So you can be like a city manager is one type of job, or you can be the contracts guy who are awarding contracts, or a lot of times you put on staffs to advise the military leadership organizations about how to do contracting or buy stuff. There's a small element of this that are called construction battalions. So when the Marines go invade a beach, they do all the fighting. They press the beach forward. They've got to have somebody support them and feed and keep them alive as they're fighting. So they call them the Seabees. The Navy have the Seabees as construction battalions. These guys come in right with the Marines, and they land. And as the Marines are fighting, they're building them a place to sleep at night. They've got bulldozers. We're building runways. We're plowing roads. We're knocking down trees to help them with the fight and help support coming behind them. So, that's our contingency job is we're the officers of the Seabees, so we know how to build roads, runways, bridges, blow up bridges, all that stuff. So.
But in your role, you've never had to be deployed.
I have actually. Okay. So those Seabees, it's like I said, it's a small element, so we don't do it a lot. But I did a deployment we deployed to the Pacific because we train and prepare for this stuff. So I deployed to the Philippines and Guam, where we would build schoolhouses. We trained by digging water wells, and so I spent a year in the South Pacific, Okinawa, Philippines, and Guam, doing projects with those expeditionary units with the Marines. We'd go out, like we'd fly to the Philippines. We built a schoolhouse in 16 days for a local community.
Wow.
While the Marines were doing their stuff, we were doing our mission. And then for the Afghan war, because the Army was in charge of Afghanistan, but the Army doesn't have, they call them engineers, but they're just guys that blow up bridges and put the manufactured bridge on. So during Afghanistan, when we were rebuilding Afghanistan, they needed licensed engineers that knew how to do contracting. And so the Army grabbed all of us Navy guys, and so I did a year in Afghanistan, awarding contracts to local Afghan companies, building barracks for the Army, border patrol stations, police checkpoints.
What was that experience like for you?
Well, Afghanistan is really a horrible place. I mean, it gave you appreciation for the Old Testament because just the godlessness of that place, no hope. It's so evil and corrupt, controlled by evil people. These poor people are they're victims. There's no hope for them. You can see the mercy. You read the Old Testament about God wiping out a whole place. You can experience that's a merciful thing for these poor people. They live so horribly, they're oppressed so horribly, and they're brainwashed that you can't even help them. Because they've been trained, they've been brainwashed to think that what you're doing is bad. And they're just so deprived. And even as much help as we try, you still can't help. So it's really kind of a sad, horrible place.
Having made a career now, being in the military virtually your entire career, what are your thoughts about young kids getting in the military these days? Any recommendations?
Well, every time somebody comes to me, I instantly tell them, don't enlist, get a commission as an officer, because if you enlist, you're going to get treated like garbage I'm joking tongue in cheek, treated like garbage for 4 years. And then you have a GI Bill. And then you got to go to school. And then you got to have the discipline to get yourself through school. So you spent 8 years and you got a degree. And it's much better just to go self-discipline yourself now, go get the degree, and then go get commissioned if you want to do military that bad. the enlisted environment's a pretty rough, morally depraved environment. It's just, why put yourself through that, you know? And a lot of people develop a little bit of bitterness because of the environment. It's like, that's unnecessary. Just instead of yelling at you all day, just yell at yourself all day at school to get yourself through, get a degree, and then get commissioned if you want. Because the officer life is so much better than enlisted. And it's necessary to have it that way to make the system work, but why don't need to put yourself through that?
That's good advice. What's the best thing about the military?
Well, my job is really unique. Nobody gets that good of a quiet life as I do. So the military's the quiet life's not that great. You know, the guys that deploy all the time, family separation is a little hard. So I don't have praises for that because I was selfishly wanting to preserve my family quiet life. So there's not a lot of jobs that can give you that.
That's cool.
I was very fortunate.
That's really cool.
So,
well, tell us about your family. So we know Suzanne's your wife. Tell us about all the kids.
So we got 6 kids. 3 oldest were born in Arizona before I joined the Navy. The last 3, Isaac, Hannah, Lily. Isaac was born in Hawaii. Hannah was born Isaac, Hawaii. Hannah, Italy, and Lily was Florida. That's one thing we looked forward to and we're excited about the military life is I grew up in a large family, not too many members of the church. We were a tight family because of that. We had to rely on each other. And I knew the military would allow us to be that way too because, when I grew up, my thought was, you don't need friends. Why friends are not that reliable. Family is reliable. And family's fun. So I wanted to have that same experience for my kids. And they got that because moving a lot, you have to rely on each other. They became really tight and well-knit. They love each other. It's a great fostering environment for that. So they still love getting together. They love each other a lot. So I attribute that to the moving around a lot.
That's true.
I do miss the village part though, because I grew up with extended cousins, the same school, everybody. Nobody knew my name, just knew I was a Perrins, so I instantly had credibility wherever I went. My kids didn't get that, so they had to reinvent themselves everywhere they went. They had it pretty tough.
But they learned from that too.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
How about you yourself? Do you got any hobbies, things you like to do with your free time?
I love team sports, any sports, love playing sports. I love to compete, not to win, but I love to compete just to push myself, as hard as I can. I just love doing that. Ultimate Frisbee, surfing, water sports, we're a big water family, diving, snorkeling. I forgot that part too. So when I first got in the Navy, I realized that there was a dive, within my engineering community, there's a dive community, so underwater construction, all that stuff. When I found out that, I joined that. So when I went to college in Florida, so my community, they send you to grad school, they want you to be, so I went to University of Florida for my grad school, and I did the dive program.
Tell everybody who was the quarterback when you were there.
Tim Tebow's freshman year was my first year there, so we had 2 national basketball championships for basketball and 2 football my time there. So
it's a good time to be in Florida.
It was a good time to be in Florida. So yeah, so part of that degree program, I did 18 months to get a master's in underwater construction, oceanography, and environmental sciences, and then that they sent me to the Navy dive school. So I did 6 months of Navy dive school after that.
Wow.
So I get to leave my normal pipeline and go do dive jobs about once every other tour, so once every 4 years.
Wow, that'd be really interesting.
It's good. Those are really fun, interesting jobs. Yeah.
So what's a day in the life of Adam look like nowadays?
The last 2 places, I love flipping houses. So the last place we lived, we bought fixer-uppers, and I flip in my spare time. But we're taking a break. For here, it's pickleball, surfing, whatever sports I can play. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, just kind of finishing up, I'd love to hear about, you mentioned your conversion story, or I don't know if it's easier to say who Christ is to you, but why don't you share a little bit about why you believe in Jesus Christ and who he is to you?
Well, growing up in the church, we talk a lot about you start out principles all the time your whole life. You don't really start off at square one and go. You whatever the curriculum is that year, you go on. And so when you grow up, you kind of know everything, but you don't. Do you really know it? And I remember thinking, how do I get to know Christ on a personal level? So I remember like my 20s or 30s thinking, I need, that's what I want, that's what I crave, to have a personal relationship with Christ. And I was always conscious of that, and I'd pray and study, but then it's over time, I don't know how to explain it, but it came, and I know my Savior. I can recognize him in anything, and it fills you, and you know it, and you know him and you recognize him, and just filled with that love once you know him, you're super sensitive to it, and I can't say you can't prescribe it how to do it. You just seek it. You seek that gift, and it's so choice to have it. But like I said, I've always known the gospel's true. I always had great love for Joseph Smith and empathy for him, but to know the Savior is really special, and you can't describe it. You can just go seek after it and get it.
I appreciate hearing that, and feel the Spirit even as you talk about that, so thanks for sharing that. So for those listening, the Perrins are now settled in over here by Dick Tannehill and the Rogers down the streets, over here at the Beach Colony, so swing by, say hi, invite them out and about. But Adam, it's great to visit with you today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.